Hi, everyone. Sorry to keep you waiting. I'm Gavin Huffam, and I'm pleased to welcome everyone to this session of how to present at international conferences. Thank you to the Royal Society of Medicine and to Inago and Carger for helping run the technical platform on which we're able to come together. It's a beautiful spring day. I'm sitting in my home office just outside of New York City. I understand people are dialing in from all around the world, and mostly in the UK. Welcome to all of you. What we're going to do today is I'm going to, let's see, get my pointers all moving. We are going to spend about an hour together, and at the end of the hour, I would be pleased to take any questions if you would type them into the question and answer box and submit them. We have a moderator who will then forward them to me at the end of the session. So I wish it could be more interactive, but that is the setup that we have today. So without further ado, so when I was in high school, I joined the drama club. Because I was interested in communicating with people. I was very nervous about being in front of the stage, so I joined the technical crew, and I was involved in the lighting and building sets and props and so on. But later on, I got more and more comfortable speaking in front of people, and now I'm pleased to share some of the tips that have worked for me with all of you. This is me standing up on a mountain top, Mount Rainier in Seattle, Washington. Just kind of, I like to start with a kind of a nice motivational slide to help us climb mountains, whatever you're doing. This is broken down today into about 6 chapters. We're going to talk about identifying the right conferences. We're going to talk a little bit about the pros and cons of virtual conferences, planning and preparing content for conferences, and then some tips on how to put your presentations together and how to deliver them, and then some tips for networking in concerts. So first of all, why do we even attend conferences? And you know, obviously the first reason is to learn about what's going on in our fields. Second, of course, we want to share our findings with others and share what we're doing with other people in our field. And that's really how science is built, isn't it? It's by sharing and coming to a shared agreement about what is closer to the truth today than we were yesterday. So we want to get feedback on our research. We want to network and explore collaboration opportunities. We want to be stimulated ourselves to bring new ideas back to our own work. We want to find resources and other researchers that we might want to collaborate with. So these are all some of the reasons why we attend conferences, right? So how do we get ourselves into a conference? There's two main ways. You can either be invited to go, or you can submit an abstract and go that way, sort of over the transom, so to speak. Usually, the invitation only avenue tends to be reserved for mid-career and higher researchers. They're contacted to present an address of some kind, or to present some of their cutting-edge research. And these could be either oral presentations or panel discussions, and it helps to establish your credibility as an expert, but you're already probably somewhat considered an expert going in. If these invitations come to you, by all means, take advantage of them. It helps to grow your network, and helps to model good behavior for younger folks coming up behind you or in your lab. Submitting an abstract is sort of the way that most presentations are facilitated. It's the most common pathway, and let's talk a little bit about where you would want to submit an abstract. Right? I'm going to talk a little bit about predatory conferences as well in a moment. So the right opportunity. What's the scope of the conference? Who are the keynote speakers that are invited and who have agreed to speak? What are the networking opportunities that might be available at that particular conference? Does it fit your timeline? Will you have a way to pay for it? Do you have funding available? Where is it going to be? Is it going to be in the a taxi right away, or you're going to have to get onto airplanes and travel halfway across the world? Who else is going? And then you want to sort of perhaps find out a little bit about the topics that are going to be presented, the various parallel sessions, the structure. I mean, there's some structures of conferences that are more suited to your style than others, I guess. And will there be proceedings published afterwards? And then are there opportunities for training? A lot of workshops, or I'm sorry, a lot of conferences will have workshops in the day or two before the actual conference itself opens. And so I definitely do recommend these, because these are where you can find experts in your field giving various topical workshops, as part of the larger conference. And so I do recommend all of these. And of course, really the best gauge for how to select a conference is the quality of the conference as measured by the acceptance and within the field. So there are some associations that put on meetings that everybody goes to. These are the A-list type of meetings that you want to go to. And then there are more regional meetings as well. So you can select, and maybe you have some findings that are not ready for prime time yet. And so you would select a smaller regional meeting, perhaps, to try it out. And then for the big national or international meetings, this is where you would perhaps want to share your golden results. Predatory conferences, these are coming up more and more, and I just want to alert you to a couple of things about them. They sometimes come as an invitation, or invitation directly to you through email. Dear Dr. So-and-so, we would like to invite you to be at this conference. And at first blush, it sometimes looks like a beautiful opportunity to be an invited speaker at a conference. But please do your homework a little bit, because some of these are predatory and just to get you forking over money to a dubious result. So check them out. If you've never heard of this conference, sure, there are sometimes new conferences that are perfectly legitimate. But if this proposed event has no track record, you don't know the people, you've never heard of the organization, just please be cautious about accepting these otherwise attractive sounding opportunities. So what about virtual academic conferences? So with the pandemic, we kind of had to get used to some new ways of doing business, right? I mean, we all like to go to conferences to meet people, to meet our colleagues and our peers, to enjoy the sociality of the event, to enjoy travel. These conferences are often held in very nice places, and so we would want to go. But the pandemic did alter things a little bit, and we have to tailor ourselves to meet the new realities. So here we are today. Today we're at a virtual conference, so to speak. It's a workshop, but it's the same thing goes. These tend to be more accessible. Anybody with a computer terminal can sign in. This is good. So anywhere from around the world, you can just sign in and you can be part of our gathering. Of course, it's more economical and it's more environmentally friendly. We don't need to travel anywhere, and it's very easy to attend. It tends to be more inclusive. If you're a shy person, you can just type your questions into the chat box and submit your questions that way. That's okay too. And so it tends to promote a more sort of egalitarian, all-comers welcome type of approach. Now, there are some virtual meetings that facilitate things like real-time polls and feedback as well. And so I could pose a question to you all and ask you to, choose a multiple choice question or ask for some feedback in another way. And so those are some utilities that are available in virtual conferences. But there are some limitations, right? For the speaker, there's no chance to really build a rapport with the audience. It's just sort of me talking into a camera in an empty room all by myself. And for you, it might be the same. You're sitting in an empty room looking at your screen and wondering, how fast you can get to dinner. And there are all kinds of possible technical snafus that can arise. In fact, just an hour ago, I pressed the wrong button on my laptop and I turned off my Wi-Fi, which caused instant panic for the few moments that it took me to realize what I had done. In virtual conferences, you're prone to distractions. I mean, the dog is barking, the doorbell's ringing, your phone is nearby waiting for your attention. And of course, the networking opportunities are fewer, perhaps. So these are some limitations of virtual conferences. Some technical guidelines for presenting in general. These apply to all kinds of presentations, but most especially with the virtual conferences. Use backgrounds that enhance your image. Don't use a goofy something that just looks really cool. I'd say simpler is better in pretty much for all of this. Conduct some dry runs to practice the technical online platform features. Consider using one or two different monitors so you can have your presentation on one monitor and all of the platform logistics and menus on another screen. So I do recommend using two or possibly even three screens. And then as we are today, we have a co-host who's monitoring the chat to field questions and help with any potential technical glitches. So let's talk a little bit about planning and preparing your content. What are you going to be doing? So these are some of the elements of a presentation, right? And things that you would want to do some homework on. What is the context of the presentation going to be? This is a part of a larger conference. You're on a panel. Are you expected to bring something new to the table? Or are you expected to be responsive to a theme that the organizers would like you to speak to? So sort of, get an idea of the big picture and what the conference is about before you just dive in and start talking. Who's the audience? Who's the audience for the talk? Are they all graduate students or medical students? Are they junior faculty? Are they a room full of experts? Know who you're talking to if possible. It's not always possible. Like today, I don't know a lot about you guys. I know a little bit about you guys. The speaker or other speakers who might be working with you, and the presentation is one of the key elements, and then how are you going to deliver it? This is an oral presentation or a poster presentation, a panel, or whatever. So for oral presentations, these tend to be reserved for, let's say, the more important or more significant, more highly rated abstracts. Some are selected sometimes for the oral presentations, and then apart from those faculty who might be invited to give the oral presentation directly. But it is possible to get an oral presentation through a simple abstract submission as well. You should probably have something meaningful to say if you're going to be giving an oral presentation. They tend not to be works in progress or early results or help me think through a problem. They tend to be a higher visibility type of an arrangement, and more is expected typically of the speaker in the oral presentations. And in poster presentations, there can be hundreds of posters allowed during the big national, international conferences, and they'll have several sessions. So they'll have a session on Monday afternoon, and they'll have a session on Tuesday afternoon, and they'll have another one on Wednesday afternoon, and each one could have 100 posters. So it's easy to get lost in the shuffle as well with poster presentations. But I found that having a nice, attractive poster put up, and you're standing there with perhaps even copies of your poster available for you to hand out to people who might be interested, but they're making the rounds in a hurry. And if you give them a printout of your poster as a take home, that is a nice way to supplement what you might be able to do in a one-on-one engagement on the spot. So, and poster presentations are a place where you can talk about preliminary results or proposed results even, or proposed projects. So pretty much it's open territory. You're to suit your imagination and the context of the conference. There's quite a lot of latitude, generally speaking. And then it's the one-on-one opportunity for you to talk one-on-one with people as they're walking by your poster, to engage them in a conversation about your work. And then you can easily turn into conversations about the other person's work as well. Oh, Dr. So-and-so, thank you for stopping by. I just read your paper in Lancet, and I had a couple of questions for you. So it can go both ways, right? So 4 steps to building an effective presentation, right? Okay, so you want to identify what are the important ideas or things that you want to talk about, and then what are the key supporting details about that. Using a top-down approach, create an outline for yourself. Then you want to get into actually making the visuals or making the slides, or if it's a poster, making the poster, and the actual construction. And this is somewhat iterative as well, even before you get to the rehearsal stage. So this can go sort of back and forth, right? A lot of times people find they start putting their presentation together with one thought in mind, and then it shifts a little bit as it starts to come together. Don't be afraid of this. This is a good thing, and it speaks to the I guess the prudence in starting early and putting some time into living with the material, sitting in front of your computer for hours on end, making it and polishing it and refining it and getting it to be what you would really like to communicate. And then, of course, looping in rehearsals, first with yourself, and then with your peers, your buddies, your mentors, for additional feedback as well. Highly encouraged, highly encouraged. It's most important for you to do this rehearsal and proofreading with talks that are not in your native language. And this is something that we see in the international conferences all the time, where some amusingly wrong slide will appear that was not caught early. And that is easy enough to avoid by getting someone to review your work who is a native language speaker. Okay, so structuring the presentation. You know, the introduction, the body, and the conclusion, right? So it's basically 3 parts to any. This can be oral, poster, whatever. The introduction is to sort of set the stage, right? You want to get their attention. If it's a talk, possibly a little humorous anecdote or just something to break the ice a little bit, something you saw in the newspaper that day that's topical to your content, or something about the surroundings, or something from earlier in the day at the conference that you would like to comment on briefly. So anything at all. I tend to avoid the real jokey kind of approach as a little hokey, but you know, for some people they carry it off okay. It depends on your style. But you do want to provide the main theme and the argument, the context. What are we doing? What do I want to say? And then we're going to get into the body where we actually say it. This is where you talk a little bit about the methods, but unless it's a methods talk, you can easily get bogged down in 15 slides on the methods. This is really a treacherous rabbit hole to go down, especially if the methods are complex or new, and then you run the risk of losing the audience. Now, if it's a methods talk, of course, then you want to talk about the method. So, but people want to, basically, they want to hear sort of enough evidence about how you got to your results to believe it, and then to hear what the results are. And then there's some ideas for how to structure the body of the content. You know, you number your ideas, arrange them in some kind of logical order. It could be chronological, it could be cause or effect, or it could be problem solution, whatever. I'm going to give you an example of this in a moment. And then provide the statistics and if whatever your evidence might be. Summarize the main points in your conclusion, reinforce the ideas. I would avoid introducing any new ideas except to the extent that you would want to perhaps point to your next steps in this line of research. So in other words, putting this particular piece of your work in the context of a larger trajectory of projects. That is certainly okay, and possibly even best practice. Thank everybody. Mention you're ready to take questions. In other words, this is all sort of completely obvious, but especially for new presenters, it's worth getting reminded about. Now, in terms of slide design and font selection, you know, the fancy slides, fonts on the right are, you know, sort of might sound appealing, but they're going to be awful. They'll be unreadable. Use very standard type fonts. Give yourself lots of white space, and make it as clear as bell. Clear as a bell. Avoid distracting backgrounds. Make sure that there's some contrast between the font that you select and the background materials. Selecting another font color is perfectly fine for emphasis, like I'm doing it here, but I'm not using a rainbow of colors. I'm not using blue on one line and red on another line and then green on another line. That's quickly becomes a circus, and you will really not do yourself too many favors by that. If it's possible to check the colors on a projection screen that's similar to what you're going to be using during the talk, that is helpful, especially if you are projecting, for example, photomicrographs or very subtle differences in a cell culture a slide, for example. You want to be careful that what you intend for people to see, they can actually see. Here's just some more examples. The left side is sort of better than the right side. These are no good, they're unreadable, and you will just lose your folks. Same with the quality of the images that you're using. So they have to remain crisp at scale. You enlarge them up, to 10 feet high in a darkened room. You don't want to be looking at the right side picture. You want to be looking at the left side picture. So pay attention to things like DPI, dots per inch. This is, starts to get into the weeds a little bit, but just a little bit of knowledge will carry you very far with your image selection. Conversely, you want to avoid text-heavy slides, right? You want to avoid full paragraphs. You want to ideally create one slide for one point. And so you're not trying to jam too much into a slide and where you're talking, all over the place. It helps the audience concentrate and it prevents them from reading ahead as well. So quick quality check on a presentation of your slides. They should contain only minimal and necessary text, just very few ideas at the same time. Make all your images and graphs easy to follow. Your animations and transitions that you might be using are relevant and not too distracting. Again, the circus idea. Keep your fonts easy and large to read. The content, you want, obviously you want to be compelling. That's more of a goal. Sometimes harder to get than others. Choose your examples carefully, choose your results carefully. Everything's relevant and clear, right? Okay, so let's move on to poster. I'm going to show you an example of a poster in a moment, but make sure that you adhere to the conference requirements. So these conferences will usually tell you how much space you have available, and they give it to you in inches and feet. Or meters and centimeters, so that you know exactly how much space you have. The poster printing shops, either at your school, your organization, your institution where you work, or a commercial shop, they'll be able to help you with this as well. Some of it, lately, the type of posters that are foldable, printed on cloth, have become very popular and very good quality, in my opinion. So I do recommend the cloth folders, posters rather. It makes it a heck of a lot easier traveling with something that's folded up into your carry-on than the big tubes with the rolled up poster that's 4 feet long. Okay. Maintain a good image to text ratio. Lesser text, more images as a general rule to consider. Some of the fonts, your headings especially, should be legible at a distance, right? So people are going to be walking the aisles of the poster room, and if you capture their attention with something that's readable from 20 feet away, that's maybe a good thing. Use the symbols to help readers navigate rather than words. Again, getting feedback and proofread before printing, or if you have enough time to get a proof print made, that would be ideal. How much detail here you want to include is going to be up to your institution and your mentor or your own preferences, but there should be definitely some of this included as well. Make your main findings easy to find. So you're not writing a paper, you're writing a poster. It's very easy. I've seen posters that are just essentially a paper printed out and then boom, 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 20 pages of Times New Roman 12-point font text pinned to a board, and that is not best practice. If possible, create one graphic or one table to focus on when you're walking somebody through your slide. And let me show an example. This is a poster that I made a few years ago to talk about some of my work. And let me point out a couple of things. Here's the problem that I'm addressing. It's very easy. I want to look at whether the clinical practice social network characteristics are associated in any way, in some way, with patient level health outcomes. All right, so this is a social network analysis poster. All right, I have my conclusion in the same format. All right, right here. Whoops, so sorry. Where I can quickly point to the result and tell people what the result is in the same format as the problem statement here. And the main graphic that I would focus on, if I had a few more moments to engage people, is right in the middle, where I can point to the type of social network characteristics that facilitate quality improvement discussions are associated with better patient health outcomes than the social network characteristics that tend to be less dense, less involved with quality improvement discussions in general. These tend to be associated with poorer patient level outcomes. So I've got three elements right here: problem statement, conclusion, how did I get there? And for those people who are really just walking by and not wanting to engage with you too much, I put the conclusion right here at the top. What's the conclusion? What's the finding? Make your finding easy to find. All right, some more steps for how to do this. Make your slides dynamic if possible. So cascades of method steps, perfectly fine. It gives something for people to think about. There's sort of a logical progression. That's totally okay. Use animation sometimes is perfectly fine. Effective redundancy basically just means you want to use multiple channels of communication to convey your message, right? So here we have a graph of some type of a lab assay that we would like to convey to people. This is one way. What we're going to do in a talk is we're going to have the message here in the title of the graphic. We're going to be speaking. We're going to be saying something about it, right? And then we're going to, over here, we're going to have the data shown textually, right? So this is textually what this line is showing. And then we're going to have it shown graphically. So the reader can get these multiple channels of communication from you regarding the graphic or other type of finding. It could be a table in front of them. Talk them through it and give them multiple ways to appreciate what you're trying to say. Infographics. So here's one of the most famous so-called infographics ever made. It was made by the statistician Charles Minard in 1869 to describe Napoleon's campaign to Moscow in 1812. So basically it's a map from Poland over here on the left to Moscow, but it's much more than just a map. So starting from Poland over here, he had some 400,000 troops marching in the summer of 1812, right? And the width of this line on the map is proportionate to the number of soldiers that he had in the campaign. So there were many battles along the way, and as you can see by looking at the size of the line over the course of the campaign, it keeps getting narrower and narrower and narrower until the time he gets to Moscow, he's down to 100,000 people. And then on the return trip back, he lost more of his troops through the deprivations of weather and food shortages. And then down below here, there's another table with the temperatures and so on. So this gives us a really nice way to convey a whole lot of information in different ways. We might be able to do even better. We can animate the same thing. Here's another person who animated this data, and this is a little quick and dirty animation that was put together to help convey this information to the reader as well. Right? All right. This is one of the most famous infographics ever made as well. So in 1854, Dr. John Snow created a map of one part of London to map out the cases of cholera at each address in this neighborhood, and the degree of black stacking boxes at each address indicated the number of cases of cholera to be cases found at that address. So after he mapped all this out, he kind of honed in on one of the potential causes or sources rather of the cholera epidemic, which was found, as we all know now, to be the Broad Street pump, public water pump. And the solution to help control the spread of cholera was to remove the handle from the Broad Street water pump. And these type of examples are talked about in the literature. You can go get books by Edward Tufte to help think through sort of how to convey your information graphically in a compelling way as well. I highly recommend the books of Edward Tufte. All right, so preparing for an oral presentation. We've got about 15 minutes left before we open it up for questions, and I think I'm doing okay time-wise. Knowing your audience, right? We want to know our audience. Again, consider how much background or context is needed. These are experts who are your peers, or these are medical students or undergraduates or lay consumers. Know your audience, and that'll help you to decide on the amount of detail. And how many technical terms and jargon you would, can get away with you using. Give some kind of a logical structure to the talk. This is going to be chronological. I'm going to talk you through how I did this project, or I'm going to start with the results and give you the results, and then I'm going to back it up with how I got there, kind of the newspaper approach. Give them some guideposts to figure out what's important and what's just sort of parenthetical information. So give them some guideposts to help them where possible. Prepare and to use spoken English style rather than reading from a paper. Reading from a paper will turn off your audience really quickly. It is sometimes necessary, let's say, if you're delivering a talk in a language that's not your native tongue. I've seen people read a talk successfully, but the printed text was carefully put together ahead of time in order to facilitate a more natural sounding presentation. You can tell that I'm not reading today. I'm just presenting off of the slides. So I've got a handful of slides here to give you some more examples, all right? And I'll walk through them. So the title slide, obviously, just put the title, and then this is a good place where you can put all of your affiliations, right? So that's easy. The introduction slide, this is where you put your background information, the broader impact or potential impact of the research. Give us some context to where you're going to put the research findings into. Sort of the so what moments, like, well, why would I like your attention for the next 10 minutes or 40 minutes to give them something, give them a reason for listening. So some people say walk them through a literature review. I say maybe, maybe not. This can really quickly get distracting and way too much detail. So I would give them 1 or 2 important articles that you might be wanting to reference as well. This can have a very good upside, however, if you choose well. The literature site will place the work in a particular community of discourse. So you have a talk, you're citing literature that is not really going to place your work in the community of discourse that you would like. That's going to throw everybody off. It's going to throw everybody off. So choose this carefully. You might even choose the whole wrong field or subfield, and then people will really be lost. And then you state your research question or problem clearly enough so that people can follow. This is where you can talk about your slides a little bit. Your methods. How did you do the characterization or the lab procedures? Again, this is going to be highly contextual and depending on the audience. So how you collected the data with the relevant amount of detail. The findings. So we all know that when you do a research study, you get all kinds of data that's interesting, and it's usually a problem of too much data to report rather than too little. And there's something called, you've all heard of salami science, where you have so much data, you can just cut your data into little slices of salami and just serve it out one slice at a time. And in a talk where you have a limited amount of time to dish out some salami, I guess that's to be expected. And especially if you don't want people to get lost in too many other sort of interesting details, they lose the focus of what your main point might be. So highlight what is the important point. Give some enough context so that people not only get the idea, hear the result, but they can sort of qualify it. You qualify it for them. Like, well, okay, does that support your hypothesis or what you were expecting, or does it not? Is this counter evidence? Is this a counterfactual, or is this supportive? It's sometimes not safe to assume that they'll just pick that up on their own. You can be very concrete and add a conclusive statement to further confirm that. Again, use charts, graphs, and images to organize and display your data. So let the data or the charts do the talking. You have data that looks like this. Throw a trend line on it if you want. Highlight the categories. This is sort of bordering on unreadable. I apologize now that I see it on my screen again. But just for the purposes of the illustration, just have a legend to document what the different groups are that you're showing results from. Discussion and conclusions provide a concise summary of the main findings. What are the main findings? Present an answer to the research question, if you have a research question or problem. If you have only preliminary data, it's okay to state it. I would try and make sure that you always include some error bars or some sort of indication of your confidence in what you're talking about. And here's an example of a slide, discussion and conclusions, and they're bullet pointed, and it gives you your folks something to read while you're talking through your discussion and conclusions. Further research, again, this is a good place to put the further research. And if you're a regular in this particular conference or conference circuit, you can start laying down teaser markers for the studies or the results that you know will be coming next. I'm going to this next conference, in next summer, and I'll talk about this next part of the project then. Acknowledgements, always important, right? Science and medicine, these are team sports, and we want to always acknowledge the team members who helped us get here, and our financial support, our funding agencies, our philanthropic friends, and so on. This is critical. You want to be able to send your slide deck to your funder and not be embarrassed that you left them off the talk. So here's some other strategies in no particular order. Rehearse the talk, right? Just do it in front of a screen, do it in front of a mirror, do it in front of your lab mates. Especially for the newbies or the junior faculty folks out there, practice a lot. In terms of the timing, your introduction areas or slides should take up up to a quarter of your time, but no more, certainly. The main body of the talk this is where you want to spend most of your time, of course, and then your concluding comments. The remaining 10 to 15% of your time. Again, begin by telling them why they should care, what's in it for them. Are you offering solutions? Or are you finding something new? Are you talking about a method? Tell a brief anecdote. You can tell some story from the lab that helps to contextualize how you got to thinking this was an interesting question, some anomalous finding that put you down a different road. This is all fine, and helps to bring some interest to the talk, right? Let's see. Engage your folks. Okay, the problem, the body, the conclusion. We just talked about this. Use transitional phrases. So this is helpful. Help people sort of go with the flow. See how you're transitioning between slides and topics, right? So now that you have seen, the method A, let me show you method B that we actually ended up using. Or as you now know, when Smith ran this problem, he found X. Now I'm going to show you what we did to address the problems that he identified. So help people transition along and follow your argument with these transitional phrases as well. Can be very helpful. Again, avoid reading. It's okay to pause and refer to your notes for reference. Don't panic, right? Just catch your breath. If you find yourself lost, that happens all the time. Just take a moment and catch yourself, find where you are in your talk. It's fine to repeat your points, especially if you have multiple points that you're trying to make. Often tell them what you're going to say it, and then tell them what you told them, right? But have fun and be personal. I mean, you can personalize it to suit your personality and your style. That's totally fine, right? If you have a chance to do a virtual conference, take advantage of the breakout rooms, and this is where people can join up to ask you questions in a smaller, more intimate context. That's fine too. Let people know how to get in touch with you later. Give them an email, or just at least give them some signposts for how to track you down if that is something you would welcome. Handling Q&A, again, there's no shame in saying you don't know, right? Appreciate the conversation. People have spent some time with you. That's okay, appreciate it, and be engaged with it. Appreciate the question, so to speak. If you don't understand the question, perfectly fine to ask them to repeat it. Or you could just repeat it yourself as part of your answer to give your brain time to catch up to supplying the answer that is most relevant to the question. Or you could ask them to clarify or to qualify the question in some way. Perfectly fine. And of course, these are phrases to help you be polite during the engagement, and then also give yourself a extra moment of reflection to find the answer to answer the question. Again, I don't know, perfectly fine answer. Don't get hung up by trying to make something up. That will just lead you down a rabbit hole that will be very difficult to get out of if you find yourself sort of lost in something that's wrong. And then, of course, you can also always call out somebody, a peer, someone else on the panel, perhaps, or someone in the audience that you notice it has some expertise or knowledge or opposing viewpoints. Sometimes you would want to perhaps give permission for the opposing viewpoint to emerge in the conversation by specifically calling on someone to provide an opposing viewpoint. Networking, again, these are just some tips. Have your bio available somehow. You can sort of do your homework ahead of time to sort of see who you might want to contact. You know, Dr. So-and-so is interested in this kind of research. Well, I'm going to see if I can track him down, or there's some eminent person in the field I would just like to meet and let them know how much I enjoyed reading their textbook when I was in medical school or whatever. Scan the attendee list ahead of time. So this is all fine. This is interesting and good habit to get into. Have some things that are sort of available to you to send quickly. So you run into Dr. So-and-so in the hallway or in a virtual breakout room, and they say, "Well, that's interesting. Can you send me a précis of what you're doing?" Have something handy, a slide or a paper that's relevant, or a draft, a working paper or a working talk that you can send off to people on short notice to help facilitate the networking. Participate in all of the activities. So if you go to a conference, it's very tempting to go give your talk and then go to the museums for the next 3 days at some lovely locale. Yeah, it's all tempting. We all do that to some extent, but do take advantage of some of these other activities. They're very, very rewarding. And once you reach sort of a mid-level or higher in your career, an argument could be made that you kind of owe it to the younger people to be hanging around a little bit to help them sort of come up after you. Just some tips for networking. Using the private messaging features, totally okay. Start a meaningful conversation via chat is very difficult, I will have to say. It's probably the best we can hope for most of the time is to make a facility available for you to ask a question and then for the speaker to respond. This is hard to do in real time. Publicize your participation in your social media sort of before and after you give it, you know, for career building purposes. So, you know, hey folks, or in real time, you know, hey guys, you know, look who I ran into, you know, and post a picture of you and your idol in the hallway on your social media account. Hashtag the conference, of course, so other people can see it. Tag your connections, encourage them to share insights, and just as you were yourself doing. So those are really all the things that I had prepared today. I would love to help answer a question. If you have them, please type them in the box. Send them over. The moderator will send them to me. And thank you for listening today. Appreciate it. Any questions? We have a few minutes. We have 3 minutes. I don't see any questions coming through yet. So I hope this is interesting to you. Some of this is sort of 101 stuff for the more practiced among the group here today. I love conferences. I mean, there was a time when I was going to possibly 1 to 3 conferences a month as part of my work, and I found it always enjoyable. I always learned something. I was always stimulated. I always made new connections, and of course, the opportunity to travel to new places is always attractive to me as well. I'll wait for a few minutes for you guys to think up a good question. It could be a comment. It doesn't need to be a question. Add a comment. Okay, let's see. I do have a question. Thank you for an excellent talk. I also similarly designed my posters by putting the main conclusions at the top. Thank you for that comment. That trick was taught to me by a public relations expert, and I couldn't agree more that it's a very good idea, because it's too hard to walk people through everything when they're streaming by you. So putting the conclusions at the top is something that I've started to do on a regular basis. So I'm glad other people are doing it as well. How does one deal with end of day or conference slot? End of day or conference slot. Well, the good thing is you can probably be more relaxed because you probably have fewer people at your session. But the conference is still open, and the people who attend, who show up at your talk, are going to really be interested in what you want to talk about. So I would say use the opportunity to engage with the people in a more informal frame of mind, so to speak. Everybody's sort of winding down. It's a little looser. You can take your tie off and enjoy it. So I don't see it as a downside at all. I would just see it just sort of as helping you to understand the context and time and place of the talk that you're at. So it's a good question, but I never let it get me down. I think the moderator is saying that they're going to share the webinar recording with participants afterwards. So I will let the moderator answer that for everyone. Thank you for that. Are there any other questions? These are some good comments, and I really appreciate your comments, and some of them I won't necessarily read, but there's some nice thank yous for the talk. Thank you very much to everyone for coming, and perhaps I'll see you again. To the moderator, are we still going? I'm happy to stick around if other questions show up. Otherwise, we can wind down. Thank you very much.